Okay, are we live with the sound? Yeah, so sometimes the audio, I tend to play around with the settings a little bit too much. I think it's back. I see the audio being monitored correctly. Thought my headphones stopped working. All right. So awesome stuff. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wondering if I have a beverage here. So anyways, today I wanted to quickly discuss with you guys a couple of things about what makes programming kind of difficult for us, right? And I wanted to kind of address some of the questions that you guys have as well in the chat. But first, let me bring the simulator here. Where is my simulator? Bam, there we go. Okay, perhaps I'll move myself to the middle. And then we'll move this simulator over to the side here. Okay. So wow. Welcome everyone to one of these Sunday live streams. And if you guys are new to the channel or new to the live streams, welcome. Today is kind of a day where we don't really discuss too much code, but instead we talk about some of the things that you guys are facing in terms of learning how to program. Oh, yeah. All right. So the audio is always tricky. So if you guys can go ahead and list out some of the topics that you guys are facing in terms of programming, figuring out what's easy, what's hard, and what's kind of getting in the way of you progressing as a better programmer, go ahead and list it out in the live chat, and I'll try to get to it depending on how fast I am with today's recording. So I really need an engineer to help me manage all this live stuff. Okay, all right. So, okay. All right. So give me 1 second here. It's always a mess trying to do this live. Okay, so hopefully some of the audio is a little better. Right here feels lonely. I'm trying to mix it so that the audio comes in a little bit more clear. So anyhow, I hope the audio is fine. Let me know if it's not. But I wanted to quickly go over the very first topic today, which is for beginners, especially when we're talking about programming and how to get into this whole idea of building out applications, making it turn into something that we want to show other people, put it on the App Store, and let our friends and family use this application, right? It's a long journey. We have a lot of things to work on, especially the syntax of a language and programming constructs such as for loops. So for beginners, from what I can tell, I think it takes a lot of time for beginners to understand what variables are, how to set variables, what the difference between a let and a var, and what are optionals, right, in Swift. And then you start to get into things like for loops, and it gets a little bit more confusing as we try to build out applications. So I think one of the more useful things as a beginner to learn is how to use print statements to figure out what variables are. And what's even more powerful than a regular print statement are the breakpoints that you can set in the little left panel while your application is running. So I don't know if they're called runtime breakpoints, but allows you to stop your program and inspect everything that's going on. In a lot of these videos that I make during these YouTube tutorials, you'll see I put breakpoints, and in the little panel at the bottom, I can inspect exactly what my variable values are. So that is something that professional programmers use all the time. And on top of that, we also use print statements. So with a combination of those two tools, we can easily debug what's going on. So that's one major tip for you guys that aren't currently using breakpoints and print statements. This is something that you should pick up as you're getting more advanced in your levels of programming. And in my college courses, everything made much more sense when I understood how to kind of stop the program in the exact places that I needed to. So sometimes variables are nil, sometimes they're just values that you don't know what they are, your expectations of those values aren't exactly true. So this is one major point that I cannot emphasize enough. When I was teaching boot camp in San Francisco, a lot of students were like constantly rerunning programs, changing the variable value to another value, hitting the run, changing the value again, hitting the run. This would take way too long, and at the end of the day, it becomes really frustrating to program that way. So that's one of the major things about learning in the beginning that you have to get used to. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is working in the wrong language space. So what exactly is a language space? Well, if you're talking about web application development, you're normally referring to a language such as JavaScript. And then if you want to get on backend servers, you're probably going to write something in Ruby, Rails, Java, or C#, right? These are backend server languages. And so if you find yourself working in the wrong language space, it can become a huge problem. For example, if you're getting into programming because you want to build out web applications on the browser, right? You find it very difficult to learn web programming or programming in general if you're approaching web application by first learning a language such as Java. And although most professional programmers would recommend that you guys learn Java as your first language, I think it's better to start with something like JavaScript if you are a web person. And the same goes for if you're trying to learn iOS application building. You should learn either iOS Swift or Objective-C. I would lean more towards Swift nowadays because the documentation on the web is just very easily accessible if you're learning Swift. So that's what I find as well when beginners are trying to approach programming. They are sometimes in the wrong language space, right? And then at the end of the day, if you try to stick with Java because everyone's telling you to learn Java, you find yourself with huge stacks of Java documentation and a bunch of Java projects that you don't care about. You'll find yourself getting really bored because it has very little to do with front-end programming, which is what you enjoy and what you got into programming for. So make sure, again, to not go into the wrong programming language if you're trying to learn programming. If you're doing web, go for JavaScript and then move on from there to something like React. And if you're mobile, make sure you're programming in Swift for iOS and also perhaps Java and Kotlin for Android. Yeah. So don't make that mistake. I think I made that mistake a couple of times when I was starting out programming, which made it difficult and wasted a couple of months, maybe even half a year. So for me, I think a lot of you guys know I got into programming with Flash, ActionScript 2, and ActionScript 3. So those are visual languages that help you provide animations and graphics rendering. And that's why I got into programming. I didn't get into programming to do back-end stuff. So I stayed away from Java, I stayed away from C#. And way back in the days, those languages weren't really available anyways. So the next topic is the lack of interesting projects for us to work on. Sometimes when I am learning something like programming, the fastest way to learn it is to actually have something meaningful to work on. And so the lack of interesting projects for a lot of us here on this channel, on the Let's Build That App channel, we're always trying to learn new things that are interesting to us. And programming starts out usually as a hobby, and it can eventually evolve into a professional career. And the reason, like a lot of us, the reason why we love programming in the first place is because our passion to put things together, like put together software, and then putting it together in a way that's interesting and it creates an application that we can actually use for ourselves and others. And that's why we get into it. Sometimes when we don't have an interesting project to work on, if we're forced to build a boring web page or build a boring iOS app that I've already built out before, I find that it impedes our progress to get to the next level of programming, right? So when you don't have an interesting goal that you're working towards, you'll find it very easy to start giving up on your original intent of learning programming in the first place. So, I guess what I'm really trying to say is definitely have something interesting that you're building towards. If you're constantly building a hello world application, you'll find yourself leaving programming rather quickly. Okay, then the fourth topic is managing expectations. And this is something that you have to deal with in general, I guess, in life. Making sure that you know at your current level of skill in terms of programming what you should be able to make. So it's very important, and it takes a good amount of time before you can build anything meaningful. So when I say meaningful, I'm talking about like a large social media application such as maybe Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, some very, very sophisticated applications. So that's what I define as meaningful, right? But there are other, maybe a to-do list application is meaningful as well, but I guess I should say anything sophisticated. Your first application should not be as complicated as building Facebook or Twitter, right? Just right off the bat, a lot of us are getting into programming to learn how to build a super advanced application because we find it fascinating, we find it engaging, and at the end of the day, we're curious as to how these applications are kind of bundled together in this little small icon, right? That's what motivates us. But these apps, Facebook and Twitter, they take teams of engineers with decades of experience, like literally engineers that have been working on it for at least 10 to 20 years, building out an efficient backend layer and also an efficient web layer with the mobile client all interacting at the same time. And this takes a lot of engineers to get it off the ground, and then to maintain it also takes many, many more engineers. And this is why engineers get paid a lot of money. These small startup companies have to have a pretty large amount of upfront investment from angel investors before they can get something off the ground. Millions of dollars. One of the small startups that I worked at, I think we had $1 million in investment, and that's when I was being paid like $120,000 of salary, and that budget kind of paid for my salary along with the other engineers. And then eventually we got something off the ground, but it wasn't successful, but it required a lot of time and a lot of work. So that's what it takes to put something like big out there on the market. So having said all that, I think that your first couple of apps should be very, very simple applications such as shopping lists, to-do lists, tip calculators, and weather tracking applications. And because these apps have one very, very just main primary important feature, it'll allow you guys to kind of focus on that specific feature without feeling overwhelmed, and at the same time not feeling lost within this major code base of code that's probably poorly written in the first place. And if you kind of set your expectations and manage them in a way such that, okay, for now, my skill level, I can build out a simple to-do list, which contains a table view, collection view, some model objects, some view classes, and that's what I should be able to know how to build right now. And then once you are able to get that done, your expectations are obviously going to go up a few rungs on the ladder of advancement. And then you can start dabbling into backend technologies, perhaps first launching your own backend in the cloud, such as Node.js or whatever server language you want to program in, and then you kind of go from there. And then as you slowly understand how the cloud works, what kind of architecture you need to power an entire application, that's when you start building out more and more sophisticated apps. So make sure you know how to manage what you can do right now, and understand that it takes years and years for us to just get anywhere. Okay. All right. So yeah, one other example that I was thinking about when I'm talking about interesting projects is, let's say for example you're learning how to cook, right? You're learning how to be a chef at some kind of restaurant, and the reason why you got into making food is because you like Japanese cuisine. And if someone is trying to teach you something like how to make American cuisine, you're gonna start to lose interest if you don't find it appealing at all. So that's what I want to say about that. And then lastly, learning a different technology stack, or learning a different technology within the same stack that you are working on. So let's see what I have in here. I think a lot of subscribers on this channel is probably most interested in building out iOS client-side applications. Let me know if that's true. I think about 80% of you guys are just learning how to build iOS apps, and that's fine. But once you are able to get to a certain level, like a certain point of your iOS career, you pretty much kind of understand how everything is put together, and you understand how to Stack Overflow search for things that you don't know, right? Like I'm at the point where I can build out pretty much most of the things that people are requesting of me to build out, because I know how to Google search. They want something built, I go, okay, that should be possible, I'll Google it for you. That's how I work right now. And at the same time, to get to the next level, you need to really explore different technologies, such as how to build out a database layer, how to build out the backend server side so that you can access that database layer and then feed that data onto a front-end client. And also you should learn how cloud storage works, along with how operations deals with the cloud architecture that you want to build out. For example, cloud architecture looks kind of like this right now in 2017. You have some kind of cloud platform that you want to invest in, such as AWS, which is Amazon's web services cloud platform. And then you launch some kind of machine, some kind of EC2 box, and then you load up that box with some kind of server, and then you also provision a database layer such as MySQL, and then your EC2 box is able to access that database, and then your website and your mobile clients are able to access that server on the cloud. So that is a huge part of software building that probably a lot of you guys are not aware of yet, but I personally find that part of building out an application is more interesting than just building out the iOS app. And it's a lot more fun and it's a lot more challenging at the same time, because there's so many moving parts, and the website is able to access your server, your mobile clients, your iOS client, your Android client is also able to access that same server. So there's many more sophisticated challenges to this problem of launching a successful startup on the cloud. And the reason why you want to put it in the cloud is because everyone around the world is able to access it, and you get benefits such as CDNs, caching layers that can serve data faster to certain parts of the world. So it's all very interesting. And what do I want to say here? I find it challenging, more challenging compared to just front-end technologies such as React.js, Swift, iOS, Kotlin, Java for Android. It's more fun, it's definitely more fun than just, okay, here's some kind of list that I want to put in the phone and then have it scroll up and down, tap on the thing, move on to the next screen. It's like building out that, like, don't get me wrong, is still fun, kind of, but I've done it so many times that it becomes a little bit tedious now. That's why I have these other framework libraries that I just build out these screens a lot faster with. So that's my take on kind of where my programming challenges lie, and the difficulties that I find today might be different from what you guys are finding difficult. So let me know what you guys are struggling with, how you guys are planning on overcoming your challenges in terms of just getting to that next, that next level. Yeah. So again, I've been programming for, I don't know, 12, 13 years probably. Yeah. I started programming when I was in high school in my senior year. So that's how long I've been doing it, and I'm in my early 30s now. Along the way, I found myself just getting better and better at it. And there were certain points where I thought I was like, oh yeah, I'm a really good programmer because I know how to solve these algorithms. I know how to put together these pages. And then I started to realize, oh, there's much more to programming than just doing all of that. And then you have to be good at one particular topic, such as front-end application building, and then you also have to be good at how to service the backend and how to service the thing like the database. And then you get into like testing, how to manage or how to QA the code that you write, how to interact with people such as designers, how to analyze whether or not workflows on an application is the most optimized for selling things on your platform. So a lot of stuff. Programming is just a small aspect of becoming a developer. Like software development, while a lot of it is writing code, you have to deal with people at the same time. So it's a field where you do spend a lot of time in front of a computer, but at the same time, you have to interact with people during meetings. Your managers will want to tell you, you should build out this particular feature because all the investors think that you're missing this feature. So if you don't have this feature, they're not going to invest in your company. Like millions of dollars are dependent on this feature. So your manager wants you to build it out, writes out a Jira ticket in their ticket management system, assigns the ticket to you. You have to determine how long that particular feature takes to build out. And then you write out a list of to-dos, a bunch of stories on how this feature should be mocked, how it should be QA'd, and then you build it out. So this takes months of time. And then once you're able to get this feature out, you have to let your boss know about it. So like a lot of stuff, like programming, like for me, a lot of that stuff was actually not all that fun because sometimes you just spend your days inside of meetings for hours and hours and hours where you find yourself listening to people that don't know what the hell they're doing, and then sometimes people that don't even have a stake in the feature set are there talking, and you find yourself listening to them. But software is a strange world. Okay. Oh, I think I got a lot off my chest there within a span of 24 minutes. Wow. Yeah. I guess maybe I'll do some Q&A, but what am I working on nowadays? Well, I was thinking about putting together like another course after I put some more final touches on that Instagram lesson. And then also I have to prepare some material, course curriculum for my trip to Shanghai in the next couple of weeks. And so I'll be going to Shanghai for, I guess I'll say 3 weeks in August, and then I'll be back in the States. And during the time there, I'll be teaching a technology boot camp. I'll be teaching iOS, Swift, and so I have to prepare for all of that. Yeah. Oh, what do I want to talk about now? I feel like I was just lost in my own thoughts there. All right. So Pavlos, Nikolai, my biggest challenge is that I know basics of both Android and iOS. My big question is if I need to choose one platform and get really good at it or continue doing both. Usually you probably have to just settle down on one of these mobile technologies. And then you should start working on it and focus on it for like at least half a year. If you try to like jump from one thing to another, you kind of get lost. and you don't really dive into all the technical difficulties of building out, for example, a video player in Android and then building out a video player in iOS. They're pretty separate, and they're both rather difficult sometimes to deal with. And if you don't spend enough time, you'll just never reach all those bugs that you run into, why certain things don't work in the background, foreground, why video players are slow, how you can resume them, and then why sometimes they just crash your application. So a lot of different unique challenges to the problem. Yeah, so I didn't try Treehouse though. Yeah, a lot of those Udemy courses, a lot of those Treehouse courses, I think can be very helpful if you're looking for how to get into programming, how to get into iOS development. They can be very useful. This channel, as you guys can probably tell, it's not exactly super beginner friendly. And the reason is because there's just so many other good channels out there, good sources for people that are trying to get into Swift development. So this channel is kind of advanced, kind of, right? But then the way I go through the material is you just start from scratch and you just build out one piece at a time, and then you kind of see how it all fits together. That's how I like to approach programming. That's how I like to approach learning. And I think a lot of you guys are getting used to how that works. Okay. All right. So Johan Albrechtsen says that what you consider good bar is constantly moving. Once it stops, you failed. Yeah. You want to make sure that your definition of advancing is constantly moving away from you, right? If you're approaching what you think is a good programmer, you want to make sure you want to redefine what that means every couple of months. Yeah. Peter Spitzer. Yeah. So I believe, Peter, you purchased that Instagram course yesterday. I'm going to say yesterday. I actually monitor everyone that logs into the, or not logs into the website, because that would be really hard. But everyone that is enrolled in the Instagram course and also the Kindle Basic Training course, I do keep an eye on. And again, if you guys have questions, make sure to leave it in the comments for the videos. There's that commenting section that I try to do my best to answer. So Peter says, it might be a bit off topic, but I never figured out what XYZ delegate self, XYZ data source equals self means. So basically this means the delegate, so XYZ in this case is usually a table view or a collection view, right? So this list. And the delegate means the delegate is usually the protocol that has the method called cell for item at row or cell for item using some kind of index path. So basically the view controller is going to ask the OS is going to ask your controller how to render out this cell for your list. And if you don't use this delegate equals self, it's not going to know how to ask your view controller class. And the same thing goes for the data source. The program needs to know what the data source is going to ask for, like the number of items. So if you don't set that to self, which is your view controller, the OS doesn't know which one to ask for. Yeah, I hope that's not confusing. It's always super hard to explain these programming concepts without code. That's why I like to, again, write everything out in code, because it's 100% it's 100% clear what's going on with code. If you have a storyboard, you have 50 different things going on at the same time. Okay. Yeah, so Richard Smith, I think this is a good idea. I time out 45-minute blocks, only do focus work within, breaks between, goal for each day is to rack up as many blocks as I can. Yeah, I think that's somewhat akin to the Pomodoro technique, where you try to get as many things done as possible within small chunks of time. It's a good way to go about your day, and sometimes I try to practice this myself. Lewis S says, is YouTube something you plan on doing long term? I think so. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are really super curious about my plans and what my thoughts are right now about YouTube. But YouTube is something that I wanted to do for a while now. And I started this channel a year and a half ago. So I put a timeline on what I can do within the next 4 years. So I'm already a year and a half into the 4 years. Things are going rather well. I think things are going better than I had expected on this YouTube channel. So it is what I would consider a success for me right now. So again, like many other projects that I work on, I tend to bump the expectations really, really high in terms of what I want to do in the next 2.5 years. And the thing about this YouTube channel is that it's not only a YouTube channel. It is, in addition to this YouTube channel, we have the website where I sell the courses, and then we have me trying to build this platform into something more than just a YouTube channel. And so I do plan on doing this for a lot longer. Putting out a mobile application for this channel is something that is on my next priority list. And a lot of different things that I want to get done here within the next 2.5 years. So things are going really well. You guys don't have to be afraid of me disappearing off the planet or off the face of the earth. And yeah. So Ruben says, great job on the channel. Appreciate everything that you've done here. Yeah. Do you think programming scene will be oversaturated with many software engineers in the upcoming years, so much so that the supply of developers exceeds the demand for them? So this is a funny question, Ruben, and the answer is actually quite interesting. It's kind of a cycle of, it's a circular logic from what I can understand, where the more programmers that we have now, that really means we are building out more and more applications for people to use, right? That's what software development is. It's just building out applications. And then the more applications that we have, the more maintenance that we have to perform on these apps. And based on all of these apps that are out there, we build off of these apps and we build out even more applications, and we have even more of a demand for engineers and software developers. So it's a little strange, but the more software developers that we have now, it means that we're building out more applications so that we need even more software developers. This was true in the year of 2002, .com era, right? You know, we thought that, oh, we only needed so many engineers. Now the need for engineers have kind of like tripled, quadrupled. And even now, we still have a overabundance of, I guess, we have a demand that we cannot meet currently with software development. We still need more engineers. In the future, the same is going to apply. Yeah. Output is kind of low. Let me see if I can bump up this output here. Gain. Okay. Gain. Okay, hopefully I'm not crushing your guys' ears right now. Yeah, it's very difficult to monitor live what exactly the audio sounds like. Yeah. A lot of the videos that I do edit together, I perform a lot of post editing on the audio, the video, make sure everything matches up, and then I apply post processing to the sound and how I sound like. So naturally, I don't sound the way I sound in the videos. There's a bit of bass added to it. And those of you that are looking to get into YouTube yourselves should invest in some decent equipment, such as like $500 of microphones that I have, and then this camera that's really nice. Yeah, should I get the new Mac or wait? I am considering buying one of the latest MacBook Pros. I don't really have a good reason to do so because this Mac is performing really well. I have a 2013 top of the line Mac. I think I just want the new MacBook Pro just because it's new. Yeah, I don't really have a reason to go and buy it. Okay. You should invest in good public speaking. Yeah, perhaps. I think the strange thing about public speaking is that, what do I want to say about it? So public speaking, I don't really think it's all that important actually. Like even though the people that can be like great influencers and can get on the stage, put their thoughts together, and then just have a really engaged audience, that's their particular strong suit. And I'm not necessarily convinced that that's what you need to be successful on YouTube or even making videos. Not a lot of those people are actually all that perhaps creative in getting something creative, like something new and something that's innovative. I don't really think they're that great at that. So a lot of pros and cons to everything in terms of skills. Thanks for answering my question. Here's some money. Thanks, Johan. Yeah. So like everything in life, like I kind of want to get back on this, maybe this topic of public speaking. Like everything in life, we all have our strong suits and we all have the things that we're not good at. And I've never, claimed to be good at public speaking, but being able to put together a YouTube channel is probably something not a lot of people can do out there. So while you are weak at certain things, you're probably strong at a lot of different other things. So we're all trying to get good at what we're trying to get good at. And it's not always the worst thing in the world to be bad at certain things, because always understand that you're a lot better at other skill sets. So like programming, it is difficult for some, and sometimes we all have to learn how we can do even better. Yeah. All right. What do you think about the future of Swift? I think the future of Swift is very similar to the future of Java, the future of C#, the future of JavaScript. None of these languages are going anywhere, right? And also people that ask, well, what's going to happen with web applications? What is that acronym for? PWA, Progressive Web Applications? Those aren't really, they're never going to compete with native Swift and native Android, because it's been talked about for like a decade now. People, like even Facebook, right? Remember when Facebook came out first for iOS, they used like some kind of mobile, it was like a mobile web app that they hosted inside of the iOS app. And then because that performed poorly, to the point where they were like, okay, we just have to write everything in native Objective-C. So they ported all that web application code to Objective-C, and now the entire app is smooth, runs fast, and it performs well, which means that they can monetize on the ads that are served on the app a lot faster, which means that they get a lot more revenue, which means more money, and hence the support of Objective-C and Swift for their iOS app is always going to be there. We can't argue with money. Like money is what drives the world, makes the world spin. Yeah. So whenever we are like debating whether or not something's going to go away, you just have to look at the money trail. Whatever money is going to be generated, the correct technology is going to be used there. Facebook uses React Native for their apps. I'm not sure if this is exactly true. Facebook uses a lot of Objective-C for their applications, and a lot of their tooling uses Objective-C too. And I'm unsure if Facebook uses React Native for all of their apps, or the entirety of their app. Yeah, and I have a friend that works at Facebook, and he says that they still use Objective-C a lot. So again, I'm pretty sure they use Objective-C, React Native, and then parts of the new libraries are probably experimenting with Swift. And then on top of that, they have so many other different technologies. Yeah, I think their main app has been ported to React Native to promote ITR. I'm not sure what ITR is. Okay, wow. So it looks like we have quite a few people in the live stream. Okay, how many of these questions do I want to get into today? I think I'll probably get off the stream in about 15 minutes. So let's see how many of you guys are interested in chatting with me today. Let me scroll up all the way to the top to see if there's anything interesting. Learning Java now. That's good. Again, Java is a good language to learn as your first programming language. However, if you really want to get into web application building, you should learn web frameworks such as JavaScript, React.js, Ember, Angular, all this good stuff. So Evan says that, will you ever do a video about getting a notification when there is a change in the Firebase database? I want to get this notification question answered. I haven't done the research myself yet, so I would like to put out a video on that, as well as other things on Firebase, such as password resetting, pagination, maybe. Yeah. So NVEX says, I've been taking Java for school, but I prefer JavaScript because of the universal use for it. Yeah. Big Timpton says, any chance of a series on ARKit? Hopefully, when I can find something interesting to build out. How many of you guys how many of you guys have watched the Core ML face detection, object detection videos? How many of you guys are finding those to be helpful? Because those are actually not that difficult to build out. Well, it's not that it's not difficult, but the technology is interesting enough for me to invest my time into researching those libraries. What I'm finding now is the ARKit package. It's visually, it's kind of fun to look at the things that people are building out. I can't find myself diving into the libraries I'm learning at right now. I just don't have a huge amount of interest in it just yet. The moment I can come up with an interesting idea, which I do have a couple of, I'll start looking at ARKit and seeing what I can do with it. And when I have something to show you guys, that's not just some simple thing where you put airplanes on the screen, I'll make sure to put that out for you guys. Yeah. Okay. React Native or Swift for the future. Again, both of these are really good options. On the Facebook page where they promote the React Native language, they say that Swift is, they say that you have to be a good iOS Objective-C Swift developer in order to become a good React Native developer. So don't expect to be good at React Native building if you can't build out an iOS app properly with the native languages. And that quote you can find pretty much anywhere on that React Native page. What's my favorite language today? What's my favorite language today? It's definitely not Swift, I'll tell you guys that. I find Swift to be a little slow. Is that what I want to say? Is it slow? Okay, so out of all those languages that I know today, I know really well, which is Swift, Java, JavaScript, some Google Golang. Those are the 4 languages that I know pretty well right now. Out of those 4, I think JavaScript is probably the one that's it seems to be, every time I come back to programming in JavaScript for the website, I find myself having the most fun. So that is probably what my favorite language is right now. Every time I have to go back to doing some more Swift programming, I find myself fighting it a little bit. I'm not really exactly sure why. Maybe because I'm using the Xcode 9 beta, which keeps on crashing on me. And then sometimes when I try to run my app in the simulator, it doesn't launch. Sometimes it crashes. There's something about the connection of Xcode and the simulator that makes it difficult to work with for me. If you've been a web programmer, you probably take it for granted how fast you can just refresh the page after you change the code. Like that's really irreplaceable. Okay, so Zach says, hi Brian, for a more advanced back end, would you recommend using AWS or Google Cloud Platform? So personally, I've used AWS for, I don't know, years, more than 5 years at least. So I'm very familiar with what you can do with AWS. Google Platform is probably equivalent in terms of what they can offer. You know, you can put up machines, put up boxes, use their photo storage platform for whatever you need. And the only thing that is a disadvantage for Google Platform is I believe they get more expensive as you scale up. AWS, the services that you're probably going to look into is simple storage, something, whatever S3 is called, to store the assets that you need for your app or your website. And they have a couple of different tiers for S3 where the regular tier is really cheap already. And if you want to get into the infrequent tier and the glacier tier, it gets much, much cheaper. So you can store things for a lot less money. But yeah, so currently I used AWS to power up the letsbuildapp.com website. Well, I use S3 and then I use Heroku for the server that is hosting the website. But then Heroku uses AWS anyways, so I guess everything is on top of AWS. But yeah, my AWS bills are like $7 a month right now. So over the years I've figured out what I need for AWS to make it super, super cheap, and that's why I don't have a huge bill. Like my last company, the AWS bill is like thousands of dollars, and for me it's like $7. So it's good. It's a good way to develop your own backend. So Lewis says, what is the demographic for you viewers? Are most of you here post-grad, pre-grad, employed? I think a lot of the people on this channel are age 23 to 28. I think that's the age range. Or it's somewhere from 23, 24 to like 29, 30, and 31. That's the biggest demographic for this channel. So it's mostly people that have graduated college, some, I think a lot with a computer science degree, and then there are actually a lot of folks that are in other disciplines, and they just want to get into iOS development. So a lot of people are actually employed in different sectors that are not related to IT or tech, and they're trying to figure out, you know, how to make it into software development, which, you know, leads to a lot of money in terms of salary. Place virtual name tags on tables at a wedding, reception, dinner. Oh boy. Yeah, someone else gave me a similar idea. So imagine a table of different fruits, vegetables, and other grocery items, and then you take your camera, you just label things on the table, like this is an apple, this is an orange, this is banana, this is like parsley, avocado, and then somehow shift the camera so that you can see the labels. I think that would be interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll come up with that and then charge people like $100 to buy it. Yeah, I think I'll come up with some simple ARKit tutorial and show you guys how it works. Here's the thing with ARKit. Like, from what I understand, looking at Apple's documentation and their sample projects, it's actually very the code that you have to write to build out something useful, the code is kind of overwhelming because you have to do things like planar detection, figuring out where you can place items in your scene. It's a lot of code. Not sure if I want to get into it just yet. Yeah, so Bankai, working on getting a degree in computer science. Yeah, I've used Swift for server side. It's pretty naive. I'm not sure if naive or native. It's pretty naive. Is Golang good? So I try to use those Swift server side frameworks such as Perfect and the other couple of ones that I just hated. I didn't like any of those packages. Yeah, I think something such as Rails, PHP, Google Golang, Node, those languages are just so much easier to build off of. That it's also one of those things where I already know how to do it in another language. Figuring out how to do it in Swift again, I felt like it was kind of a waste of time for me. Yeah, JavaScript is short and punchy. You don't have to worry about types. Yeah, when you're working on a project by yourself, JavaScript is super easy to work with because of its loosely typed nature. However, when you start getting to large companies with 500 engineers, if you start programming without types, it becomes really difficult to manage your program. It also takes a lot longer to compile. Oh wait, is that true? To run, I think runtime is slower. But types, I used to be a big fan of strictly typed languages, and now I am kind of in the middle. I like them both. They both serve their own purposes in getting the job done. jQuery is pure JavaScript. Yes, that's true. Sophomore year, Python. So Python is one of those languages that I've never really got good at. Hopefully someday I'll have the opportunity to learn Python better and also build out a meaningful, useful application. I'm looking forward to watch your series about decodable models for nested JSON. Well, Siegfried, the decodable object, it's pretty simple if your objects are nested in JSON. I think that video that I put out on the JSON decodable had a pretty good example of a nested object. You just have to mark it as JSON decodable. It'll automatically know how to decode that object. So, yep. Series on AWS, like my Firebase series. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. One thing that a question that I'm struggling with these days is whether or not to start a different channel for like Android content or just keep all the Android stuff on this channel. It seems like I don't really want to manage all of the overhead of creating a new channel right now. which means I'll probably have everything on the same channel, which can also mean everyone that's here for the Swift iOS stuff, you're probably not going to like seeing the Android stuff. But not really sure I want to create another channel right now. Both Golang and Swift have a decent developer community. Yep. Okay, so Jonathan Trong, let me try to answer this question. Which contributed to your knowledge the most? Did you research or research on your own from work experience or schooling? Most of what has contributed to my current amount of knowledge in programming is just my own research and also the research that I've done myself during professional work. So professional work experience has also helped me a lot. Schooling is probably the least important of these three, but I don't want to say that it's not important. Yeah, learning about the theory of computer science and programming has helped me a lot, because you get to understand things like memory management, how things are allocated, arrays, stacks, caching, recursion. You get to learn about all that. But just like many other topics in life, you can learn all of this on Google. Yeah. Am I starting an Android channel soon? I don't know. I bought an Android device the other day. Where is it? Let me pick it up here. Okay, out of the frame. So yeah. So I went out and bought a Moto 5G Plus. Man, a lot of notifications. And so I don't know if you guys can see the difference between these two screens, but okay, that's that. Hopefully no embarrassing notifications. Yeah. I'm really actually liking this Android phone. I just got it yesterday. And what I'm trying to do is to kind of analyze how the Facebook app is built out, perhaps the Twitter app, and then build out a series for you guys. Don't really know when that's going to happen, but I made the first, took the first step in actually getting a testing device, which is here, $200 for a Moto 5G Plus. Not a lot of money, but you know, definitely one of the milestones that I have to get to. Okay, wow, there's 144 people in this channel. I think it's because I put the announcement in the Facebook group. So a lot of you guys here today. Hopefully you guys are not having too much to do on a Sunday. The reason why I do this on Sunday is because it's downtime for me and I have a couple of hours to spare. Wanted to just join and talk with you guys on a live, like real-time basis. Not exactly real-time because there's a delay of, I think, 10 seconds. Oh, all right. Okay. Can you talk about interviewing for big companies like Google? So I had, out of all those big software development companies, I only talked with Google once. And the guy that interviewed me gave me a pretty insanely difficult question. Something about this processor is this fast, it works at 2.3 gigahertz. If I'm trying to compute these couple of instructions, how many times can I compute this in like a minute? So obviously I didn't know how to answer a question like that. I thought it was really difficult. And I didn't really like that engineer that got on the phone with me. So it was a phone interview. I rather not work for a company like that, actually. Like, so for example, a company that has 1,000 engineers, a couple of thousand engineers, how much are you going to impact the company if you're just one of 1,000 compared to if you're one of 5 engineers at a smaller startup. I like to make my input, give my input and make my impact with what the company is building. It's difficult, even for a company with 30 engineers, it's difficult to make your impact. But then again, you get a lot of benefits and perks, paid salary, a very nice stock options package. And if you invest for 4 years, I think you're going to be pretty well off. And it's also good to have a company such as Google on your resume. Yeah. I don't know if I should devote all my time to learn Java or Python. I'm really stuck on the fence. Well, just go with one. That's all I have to say. Okay. Yeah. So Jenny asks, how have you handled other interviews? To be honest, to be 100% totally honest, I think interviews, I think most of the time when I've gotten job offers, the interview process was just a formality. And most of the time, before I even stepped into the door, the people there had already had in mind whether or not they wanted to hire me. And the interview only did only played a small part in convincing them on their final decision. Yeah, last 6, I think I probably had 6 jobs in my professional career. It was just mostly the school I graduated from was a good school. The projects that I put on my portfolio closely reflected what they wanted in their next software develop hire. And the questions that I was able to answer during the phone interview and the on-site interview, I don't think that played really that much into the hiring process. Yeah. I've been struggling in auto layouts to adjust all the devices. How can prepare for that? Well, auto layout, I don't know how to answer this question. Auto layout means that you have certain things, 2 things on the side, 1 thing in the middle that expands, and you just build it out that way. When the device expands and rotates, it'll just automatically configure itself to look correct. Yeah, it's difficult to answer that question in a couple of sentences. I feel like anytime someone is asking the auto layout question, they don't really understand what auto layout is. So I would suggest doing a little bit more research on what exactly auto layout is supposed to be doing and what its responsibilities are. Again, you have static things on your screen and then you have stretchy things on your screen. Once you understand what is the static thing, what is the stretchy thing, then auto layout should come to you, or you should come to a good understanding of what it is. Can you do more on creating complex layouts with auto layout? Yeah, I'm thinking about just picking a random app in the App Store and just trying to lay it out with auto layout. It's actually very simple, putting together the layouts. This is kind of why I don't really answer that storyboard question anymore, because putting together the layout on an iOS app is the most trivial part of the application building process. I know a lot of you guys probably don't think that right now, but the design, the screen, the mocks, building out something that looks like what it's supposed to look like is really trivial. The more non-trivial task is how the client does the networking layer, how it manages the data, what happens when it goes to the foreground, background, and then things like playing audio, playing a video. It's much more difficult than putting things on the screen. So yeah, And the moment you move away from the storyboard, that's the moment where the laying out process becomes even easier and it becomes even more trivial. Because I feel like everyone's just fighting with the storyboard, fighting with the little controls that you have to like anchor the height, anchor the thing to the left, the top. It gets really confusing to a lot of people. Yeah. Whoa, we are past the 1 hour mark and we have everyone starting to leave the channel. Oh, so it looks like we have 140 people. Okay, 139. Everyone's starting to make their way to the exits. Talking about layouts, I'd love to see a video from you developing a UI for iPad. Left side table view, right side preview. Yeah. The thing with the iPad is that not a lot of applications have that setup where there's a left table view and then a right side detail view for whatever you're selecting on the left table view. Even though Apple recommends this approach, like you see Spotify, you see Facebook, none of these apps have that design to it. Even Twitter doesn't have the left side. What is that called? I can't remember what that controller is called. Split view controller, I believe. Not a lot of apps use that. Fathiga asked when the next premium tutorial, will the next premium tutorial be in Swift for Xcode 9? Yes. I don't really want to develop in Swift 3 anymore because obviously it's not going to be future proof. And also Swift 4 is so similar to Swift 3 that it's just better to be looking in the future instead of just continuing on with Swift 3. All right, storyboard sucks. Yeah, so Brendan says, I wish ARKit had an equivalent to CSS framework like Bootstrap. There are some pros and cons to Bootstrap. My website currently uses Bootstrap, letsbuildthatApp.com. I am trying to move off of Bootstrap, and yeah, I don't know. Storyboard sucks. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to work with. Can you talk about algorithms in the workplace? How does that make you a better hire for a company? Okay, so a lot of you guys that have never gone into a job interview before, that have never been asked an algorithm question, you guys probably don't understand what the point of an algorithm question is, or you guys probably have kind of an idea, like it determines your, I guess it's an IQ test, is pretty much what an algorithm test is. But an algorithm question during an on-site interview is much more than just an IQ test. There's two parts of the on-site interview, especially the whiteboarding interview, that's important. The first is they're looking for someone that can understand their problems and the way that they explain their problems, and they expect you to come up with a decent solution to whatever they're trying to solve. So that's like an important skill to have. And then the other important thing is they want to know if you are someone that they can work with. So they give you a difficult algorithm problem, and then they want to make sure that you are able to communicate with them and ask questions to them so that you can figure out the solution to that problem. If you don't exhibit these characteristics as a software developer, they're probably going to hire someone else that can be better at like engaging with them to be in a collaborative effort on solving these problems. So that's kind of why the algorithm questions are important. If you're really difficult to work with, then giving someone a problem to solve is a really easy way to figure that out. Yeah. I had an online interview where they asked me to code a console tic-tac-toe game within 30 minutes. I failed. Thinking about that, for me personally, I think I would fail too. So you would have a grid of 9 cells, and you have to determine if there's a diagonal, horizontal, or vertical match. I don't know. it's definitely something I would not expect someone to be able to do within 30 minutes. And it's not even a really good question for a software developer. Like, what does this determine if you can solve horizontal and vertical matching? You might be a terrible iOS engineer if you are able to do that. Yeah. You know, it's these questions right here that mostly is responsible for frustrating job interviews, like questions that don't have anything to do with the job. So I believe more and more companies are moving away from these non-helpful algorithm questions where they want to ask you something that's meaningful and related to the job. Yeah, companies are being more sensible about it now. Starting university in less than a month, dive right into C++. Oh man, C++ seems to, well, I have no prior programming knowledge. How difficult would you rate my journey? Depending on the professor and how they ramp up the difficulty, I think C++ is a perfectly fine language to learn. It's no different than JavaScript, Java, C. Like the beginning parts of programming is all the same. Like, how do you print something? How do you check a value? How do you set variables? How do you do loops? All programming languages require you to learn that in the beginning. That's why I do these algorithm videos and I show you guys how dictionaries work, how to loop through arrays, how to figure out if a string matches into the string. Like these are the important concepts of programming that, even though right now you probably think that they're not related to Swift programming, they actually are. What was the first language you learned, and what language do you think iOS developers should start with? I find like this question is probably one of the most non-helpful questions to ask. It doesn't matter what your first language is, and it doesn't matter what your first language is to learn iOS development with. Like, obviously you should know Swift, but it doesn't matter. Like, none of this stuff matters. As long as you find someone that is able to teach you iOS development in a fun, engaging, interesting way, you should be able to pick it up. Yeah, like a lot of these questions, like the answer is it doesn't usually matter. Just find a way to learn it. Yeah. But it's definitely easier for me to say it in my shoes. And yeah, back then it was difficult for me to learn. But then again, back then we didn't have Google, or we weren't able to Google to the extent we are able to do so today. So Carlos asked, do you offer any paid iOS dev courses? You know, platforms like Udemy. Do you have any paid per view series? Have you ever thought of making one? Yeah. If you go on my website, which is www.letsbuildthatApp.com, you can find courses, paid courses on that website. You can also find the 2 links at the very bottom of this video description on where the courses are that you can buy. And if you want to support the channel, you can purchase those courses. Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about, I guess, I don't know if I want to say this right now. Well, I guess this is my channel, so I'll say whatever I want. Like, I've been lately, I don't know if you guys are aware, but YouTube has started demonetizing, and it's been harder to make money on YouTube through ads. And so a lot of people have been favoring this Patreon program where you pay your video creators for them making content. This channel is not about that. I don't want to take money from you guys and then not having anything to give you guys in return. So even starting from day one, this channel was all about, okay, how can I best provide you guys with value? I don't want to take donations, and that's why the courses on my website, the courses are there for you guys to purchase and get something out of it. I don't do Patreon because I don't believe in like, I really don't believe in donations if you're someone that is smart enough to operate without people donating money. Yeah, like this, like people on YouTube they should have a plan in their channel. I guess I don't want to talk about this anymore. It gets really boring if you don't care about it. Apothecary John says that, why not just take my money, dude? I wouldn't donate if I didn't want you to have it. I don't want people to donate money unless I'm really providing some bit of value to them. Like, there's something about, like, even when I go out to lunch with my friends, I really do not like my friends picking up the tab, buying me lunch. In a lot of ways, I somehow feel like I'm indebted to them because of that. And that's why I don't like taking handouts. I just do not like the feeling of people giving me things without me, like, earning it, right? I don't like not earning things. So that's why I don't like taking donations. And if I feel like if I did start taking donations, then I would have to keep track of who's been donating money to me so that I can pay them back somehow, some way in the future. And yeah, so that's my take on donations. Okay, so the Disciple says, I just joined a company as a junior iOS developer, temporary position. They said that I have to be proficient in developing apps in 3 months. So can you advise me how to go about it? Well, that seems like quite the ambitious goal. It's definitely possible to become proficient. So obviously all the lessons on this channel, it's helpful for laying out the UI and working with the server, parsing JSON. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, most of the iOS jobs out there is just placing things on the screen in a list, parsing some JSON, putting that JSON in some kind of model, and putting those models in your views. 90% of the job is that. So, yeah. I'm donating $1,000 to you right now, like it or not. Yeah. So I guess I'll take it back. I think donations for me. They're good now that I can use the donated money to invest in more equipment. So, better mics, better lighting, better cameras, and all of that. So that's where the donations really go towards nowadays. It also goes towards server costs. Some of those JSON APIs that I let you guys use, I actually have to pay for it out of my own pocket, which I'm more than happy to do so because it provides so much in terms of the learning process. For you guys to set up your own JSON server behind an HTTPS wall, it's probably something that's more effort than it's worth. So me being able to do it because I just know how to do it already, I'm more than happy to do that. But it does cost a little bit of money. It's not a lot. It's like $5 a month. And it's just able to provide so much more. The value behind the $5 is so much that it's a no-brainer for me to host it myself. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is it? 12:51. The stream has been going on for, good God, an hour and 20 minutes, and we still have 140 people on here. Wow. What are you guys doing on a Sunday? Aren't you guys out and about, enjoying the nice weather? Okay. All right. Next 10 minutes, I'm going to have to end the stream at an hour and 30 minutes. Just so people later on don't complain about how these streams are super, super long and they can't find any useful information when it's being posted on YouTube. I get that a lot, actually. People are always saying, why are your videos so damn long? Well, it's a live stream. It's usually just meant for like Q&A and getting to know you guys a little bit better. Yeah. Do you have an idea about how to go in the direction of AI development? What would be the best way to start? I think a lot of AI development, I'm not sure if AI and machine learning is related. I would think that they are. So machine learning from CoreML is a really easy topic to get into because you can start, object detection, figuring out what a certain language is saying. You can do translations, figuring out whether or not something is positive, negative, or emotionless in a sentence. Like CoreML is, I think, one of the most interesting things being introduced in WWDC of 2017. What is a good book to learn? I was developing. I'm currently reading Big Nerd Ranch. Until I come out with my own book, I'm not going to recommend anything from anyone. So one thing about books is that I don't have any books. I think I used to have like one programming book, and then I threw it away when I moved. I'm not a big fan of books in general because most of the relevant things that you need to know about is already on Google, and books usually get outdated, or the information in a book is outdated within a year. So it's difficult for me to recommend anything unless I write one myself and try to sell it to you guys and get that sweet green from you guys. I think later on I'll probably start my own podcast, and also have an ebook that I can post on Amazon just to kind of get my thoughts together in a book so that you guys would stop asking me these damn questions. People are haters. Wow, this is a super old question. Could you do a video on URL session? Did finish learning to URL on a URL referring to a storage asset. I'm not really sure what a storage asset is. Isn't this just a standard URL session? Is this a cloud storage asset? I think that's a different story, but I think it operates exactly the same. Why don't you just use the did complete or completion block with the response data and error handler? Seems to be exactly what you need. Oh. Hello, impressive about donations. What do I need to learn most to become a Java middle tier developer? Oh man, I think you have to learn things like Java Spring and Beans and what Tomcat is, what Java EE, Java EE Enterprise. You have to learn all that. Yeah, I was never a big fan of all that, so I'm not the best person to ask how to get into this Java middle tier. The last company, a lot of good engineers did that, so I didn't have to write any of that code. And then when I had to debug that code, I was just completely lost. So I know I spent between 8 hours debugging. It sucks. It's not the best. 8 hours debugging. I don't know. I think debugging is actually really fun. Yeah. Debugging is fun. Figuring out why your program, figuring out why my program sucks is one of the more fun parts of my day. Figuring out whether or not someone else's program sucks is a totally different story. Yeah, notification types. Any tips for iOS interviews? Well, so all of the courses and lessons on my website and channel, they're really geared towards people that are trying to get their first job and how to place a useful portfolio project onto their resumes, and then also to make it so that your interviews are easier to pass. So if someone's asking you what a collection view is, if you've watched this channel enough, you probably know more about collection views than you need to in order to pass the interview. And things like how to parse JSON, how to put things in a model object, the model layer versus the view layer, controller layer. All that's like pretty trivial to me, at least. Okay. Uber Goober says that regarding live stream videos, you should index them in the description with linked timestamps. Well, I've considered like somehow know what I'm talking about during certain time segments of the video, but I'd have to like stop right now, hit some kind of note in Notepad, and then figure it out. Or I can hire someone that can watch the live stream and then document exactly when the questions are being asked and have some kind of time code for that. Which if someone wants to do that and then link me to the time code, I'd be more than happy to put that information in the description. Currently, I do not have the resources to do that. Okay. I hate reading, so do I. So Majorian Igor says that, is it possible to recognize car plate licenses with Vision, CoreML, and frameworks? So yes, CoreML has a handwriting and also a letter recognition package. Yeah, so Vision has they have a demo on how to recognize letters and words in Vision. Don't know exactly where that demo is or that sample app is, but it's definitely there. I've seen some samples on it too, and for the most part, it's able to recognize like English letters with high accuracy. I finished a coding bootcamp and will be entering the job search as a MERN developer. Any advice? I'm not exactly sure what MERN is, but I'm gonna guess it's some kind of stack, like a mean stack, like MySQL, E for something, R for something, N for something else. React? Is this React? MySQL, React. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Self-employed. Yeah, so looking to get an LLC. What's the book name? It's probably going to be something in regards to how to learn programming in something that's such a visual technology stack, such as iOS and Swift. Because I feel like a lot of people get into iOS because it's visually engaging and appealing, but they don't really understand that it's mostly programming. And like, oh, here's how you put the thing on a storyboard, which for the most part is kind of useless. Tell us. You know, surprisingly, I get some of these emails that are formed like this trolley question. So I get trolled in my emails a lot. I've been considering making a video on how I get trolled. What iOS topic for 5-10 minutes you suggest for iOS Dev Conference? So I've been to an iOS Dev Conference and I've given a talk. I can't say that it's all that fun to give iOS Dev talks. I always thought when I was like a little bit younger, when I was in my mid-20s, that it'd be really fun to go to like WWDC, speak in front of a crowd of hundreds of people. I don't think that's all that interesting to me anymore. I mean, I'm pretty much doing it right now in front of all of you guys. It's much easier to just sit at home in front of a mic, you know, just do it in my sleeping pajama clothes. Going in front of a live audience, preparing the material, oh my god. it just takes way too much effort. And then the return on that investment is not all that high. Okay, so 130, here we are. Title of the book, pretty good programming. Yeah. It wasn't a troll. Actually, I love programming, but the problem is I'm not that good at mathematics. Does mathematics play a crucial role in programming? If yes, tell me why. I thought I answered that question in a video where I mentioned that mathematics, especially in iOS programming, is not that important. Like, all of UIKit handles most of the math that you need. How to render things on a screen, how to make it wide, tall, short. Like, doesn't UIKit do most of that for you? Yeah. Like, the only thing that you'll ever need math for in programming in a job that is just standard, regular web application programming, the only reason why you would need math is to determine how fast things are running. You would have to somehow make sure the response times for your website is fast. And even then, you don't need like advanced calculus. It's just simple, like taking averages. It's not all that difficult. Like I've never had to take a derivative in my professional career. I don't think I've had like integration of a bunch of metrics, maybe. But then again, the other companies that do the metrics monitoring analysis, they do that for me. I don't have to care about it. But again, it's useful to know how to derive the numbers that these metrics, these software companies are presenting to you. Asked this question a while ago via Twitter. It didn't get a response. Could you elaborate on why you use MVC directory structure instead of Lyft directory structure? Well, the reason why I do most of what I do is because it's the default that comes with the software. For example, Xcode, it says the first file that you get is something called a view controller. And then you just have to create your own models, and there you go, you have MVC. A lot of people get into these acronyms such as like solid, Lyft, MVVM, all this stuff that I don't consider to be super important until you have a team of like 10 to 20 developers. MVC is the easiest and most widely used pattern. And to go into something like Lyft, I don't even know what that is, but yeah, it's difficult to explain like more sophisticated architecture when you're just making videos on how to place things on the screen. So someday when this channel gets enough people that are desiring that type of content, then we'll look into it. Yeah, learning math is important, making you a good programmer. Actually using math is not that essential in programming. That is a perfect description as to what programming is. Okay, how much of algorithms do programmers use, or does it really depend on what is being programmed? So yes to the last question. Yeah. Okay. All right, so seeing as how we are at the very end of the questions of the day, I'll probably gonna end the chat now. 1:34. Wow. Okay, long live stream, and I'll hopefully see you guys in another live stream probably next Sunday, and I'll get to some of these questions for the next time around when I have a little bit more time and when I'm probably not all that tired and exhausted. So yeah, I don't know what a breakpoint exception is. I don't know, it sounds like the editor is having a problem understanding what your code is doing. So yeah, tomorrow I have a video queued up. It's going to be on how to solve a common algorithm for one of these algorithm interview questions that you guys will likely face in the future. And hopefully you guys will enjoy that video. And thank you so much for joining me today in today's live stream. Hopefully I answered the questions that you guys had. There's way too many of you guys for me to answer every single question. I do apologize for not getting to you guys. And, join me next Sunday for another interesting chat. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your guys' time. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Bye.